And I will ask Anne and Gavin and Heather to raise their hands or come off mute and say a word so I can find them and repin them.
I'm here.
There you are.
You got us.
I've got you. And without much further ado, I am going to invite Anne to take charge of this conversation so we can learn all about ReAction Collective. Anne, over to you.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing to say is just to clear up the fact that Heather and Gavin are not a couple. Okay. They're neighbours, but they have their own families, their own homes, and their own businesses. So coming together with the ReAction Collective is quite a deliberate act, and so that's where I want to start. Really, you know, you're both refugees from the UK, living in the French Alps. So Heather, did you just wander into Gav's ski shop one day and say, "Why are you selling all this new stuff? You should be recycling"? Or Gav, did you say to Heather, no, you don't need a new jacket. I can show you how to repair it. How did it all start?
Well, Gavin's going to start with the story.
I'll try and keep it short, but I'm not very good at keeping it short because it's been quite a long and windy route to where we are. But I would say the start was a day we put on in Courchevel outside a ski shop I owned called a Fix-It Day. So Heather and I both lived here. Actually, I've got a little presentation on, so if I can just show some slides, it'll be quite handy. Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Right, I got it. 1 second. There we go. Can we share screen?
I think it is.
Are we sharing screen? Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. So it started with that photo there on the left. That's me with a good friend of mine called Gina, and just behind that photo is it's a ski shop that I just used to own out in the French Alps. Heather and I have been here roughly for about 20 years, living in this area, and I sort of got a bit disillusioned with the work I was doing in that ski shop. So I was selling a lot of new kit, ski boots, skis, came with a lot of plastic packaging. And there was a lot of waste involved in what we were doing. And at the same time, I can remember looking out the back window of that shop progressively over the seasons, and the snow level was creeping up the mountain. It was raining more often than it was snowing. And because of where we live, we can actually see the impact of climate change fairly regularly. Like the glaciers are receding, biodiversity loss around us. We've had forest fires. So that was kind of the trigger for what was to eventually become ReAction. And that day was just that day was actually in response to Brexit. So Brexit was going to happen on the back end of March. No one was going to come to the ski resort because everyone thought their flights were going to get cancelled. Turned out it wasn't actually Brexit that time round. It took like another 4 goes before it actually happened. But we thought we'd do something positive in resort. So can I swear on there? Is that all right? We did an event called Fix It, Fuck Brexit, because at the time, you know, Brexit was quite difficult for us. We were all living out here. We didn't know if we could stay. And we wanted to do something positive on the day. So we decided to put this repair day on. And as we put the day on a couple of weeks before, I asked a lot of friends if they want to just donate ski gear. And what we do with that ski gear is resell it and plant as many trees as we possibly could. And we actually ended up having loads and loads of people donating ski gear. We raised €9,000 and we put it to tree planting, which basically triggered two sort of thoughts in my mind. The first was like that our community cared, that they wanted to get involved in something. And the second was that we've just got a lot of ski gear in our community that people aren't using. So it really started there. Heather came to that day, a lot of my friends came to that day, and we connected, started plotting, started working together. And off the back of that, I decided to start an association, which is like a CIC in the UK, called One Tree at a Time.
Which is up here.
Yeah, which is up there at the top right. And within about a year, we'd opened a community space in the village, which was completely self-funded by selling all the waste ski gear and clothing and skis and ski boots that are in our community. When we set up that space, I'm the president of the association, and as the president in France, I can't be paid for my role. So very much have decided to take a big back seat to how that space is shaped. And so left that space to be shaped by our community, by our staff, by the people who are working there, the people who are involved in it. And so essentially what we did in the first place was just build a great big desk at the front so that we could have workshops and teach people how to repair, and just a space for creativity. And then it's kind of spiraled from there, and the community's built the space as they've gone along. The person on the left here is Zelia, who's been a hugely influential part of this process. I spoke to Zelia for like a minute when she said, we need someone to work in the shop. And within a minute, I was like, yep, come and work in this space. And Zelia came into the space very creative, but at the time couldn't sew, couldn't screen print. And over the last few years, just because she's got the tools and the space, she's taught herself to sew, to screen print. And she's been running some really good projects like this, where we create patches using local artists. The artist individual's Timmy. And yeah, we patch over stuff. After that, so One Tree at a Time was going. It was successful. It was self-funded. And I was speaking on the podcast, and someone asked me, how do you scale the impact to One Tree at a Time? And I vividly remember not wanting to scale the impact because I didn't want to open up shop space, and I didn't believe that that's the route we should take. So at that time, I started chatting to Heather about the idea of creating a collective, of creating a network. And this is actually the very first guiding principles that we wrote, which I haven't looked at.
I haven't looked at breaches.
And the top bit says citizens, not consumers. So as you can probably imagine, we just read a book when we started doing this. And what we've done is we formed a collective of organisations. At the start, there was 5. And these organisations are focused on introducing circular models to the outdoor industry. So they're either repairing, renting, creating sharing platforms, running community workshops. And we all communicate on Discord. So we've sort of got together with 5 to begin with. And now after this week, there's going to be over 50 of us from all over the world. If you want to click the next slide, Heather. We now stretch from New Zealand right up to the Kootenays, to the UK.
Where my son lives.
Yeah, where your son lives. And as I say, yeah, we've sort of spread to include 50 plus organisations that meet regularly. We meet online once a month to support each other, to share the problems, to share ideas, to share materials sometimes. Do you want to click the next one? And occasionally, when we can, get together. So this is a few different events that we've done recently. The one on the bottom left is the Birmingham Running Show last year. So the Birmingham Running Show as a collective, promoting reuse, repair, rental of equipment. And the other photos are a recent event that we did at John Lewis on Oxford Street, where we were demonstrating how to patch and repair clothing and holding conversations about that. And what we've ended up doing, is finding our crew, and this is part of our crew. Our crew stretches all over the globe. And I think there's just one more. What I just wanted to finish quickly with saying is, this is an example of one of our members. So this is a place called Antrophia, which is just up the road from here. One Tree at a Time is part of this space. The top photo is what it used to be. So it used to be a supermarket, and now it's a community hub. And if you go inside that space, there's repair studios, there's potting wheels, there's all sorts of secondhand stuff, bar, a restaurant where you pay what you feel. So that's the story, the journey. I hope I kept that short enough.
Fantastic, thank you. That's we had a few questions that people had put in the Discord, and you've answered quite a few of them with that. One of the ones that a few people had asked was that, well, that's even more complicated than I thought it was, actually, because One Tree at a Time seems to be a separate organisation to the ReAction Collective, and one's an association and one's what, a CIC or a not-for-profit. Okay. Okay, so yes, so I've got some questions about governance and constitutions and all of that, but the question I think that most people are interested in is, how do you balance all that with your day jobs? Because you've both got other businesses that are actually bringing in the money you need to survive, and the ReAction Collective, as I understand it, doesn't bring you any money at all at the moment. So how's it all balanced?
It's a passion project at the moment. We just work on it when we can. Like Gav's actually working more on it than I am. So he's bringing new members on board and putting all the posts out on LinkedIn and so on. But we speak to each other daily, pretty much, and we're always, I don't know, thinking and moving things on and working on the next thing. I don't know, we just fit it in around because it's something that we care about and that we think has real legs. And we also know that if we can get real funding for this, that, you know, we can leave some of our day jobs to be able to invest more time in this. And if we can do that, I think that we can move this on leaps and bounds. It's got so much potential.
Do you want to say a little bit about what your day jobs are, and that frame is maybe a little bit funny as well because you sort of migrate between them, I think.
Yeah. So my day job is, well, I call myself a communicating sustainability professional. That involves me working with lots of different companies, helping them to communicate what they're doing on climate generally, but ESG more broadly, without greenwashing. So I hold my clients to quite a high standard and hold them accountable, and just try and get the message out. And I'm also a carbon literacy facilitator, so I do quite a bit of training, helping marketing communication teams know how to communicate these things effectively.
I've heard you talk about impact reports, Heather. Perhaps we can come back to that in a minute. Talk about how you might be measuring the impact of ReAction. But Gav, what about your day job?
I do a bit of everything, to be honest. Like when I do some stuff as a volunteer at One Tree, I sort the garage, I do the accounts, sweep the floor, I stack the shelves, I do the patching, I hang out and have get involved in the workshops. I'm in a period of having sold my business and have a little bit of a breathing space to put a lot of time and effort into this. And I think the reason I am able to put so much time and effort into this is it's also really fun and really joyful. So that Discord channel, one of the best things on there is the wins channel. And when you can be feeling a bit down, I specifically remember last year we had a forest fire that I could see from this window just behind me. It burned for 2 weeks and I was feeding my child Noah as there's a forest fire out your window. Pretty hard thing to be doing, but at the same time there's winds coming through on that wind channel and you're like, oh, something's happening, like there's some progression. And what that does is it releases some of the pressure. So when you feel like, oh, I've not really done anything this month, because sometimes it's really, really difficult to get stuff done, there's still like this drip feed of really good stuff coming through. So I think like the power of it being fun and joyful is the thing that means I can fit it into my life.
Yeah, that's super. So Chris has asked how it spread from a local organisation to a worldwide one, and I wonder if you can perhaps put that answer in with the impact and how you're measuring impact, how you're helping people to recognise the impact they have, and if that has an influence on who joins and where they are in the world, and what's happening in their parts of the world. Yeah,
so for the organisations that joined, we created a manifesto at the very beginning as well, and that manifesto kind of excluded a lot of organisations was the sort of aim of that manifesto. It was to say that this is about people that are introducing community-focused repair, reuse, resale, community hubs, and not to be kind of including big brands that might want to jump on board. So we did that to start with, and actually over the last year, I really don't chase, after the last 2 years since we've been going, I really don't chase members. Like, I don't look to find them or let them come to us, because it's about having the right people in the room, not the amount of people. And I don't feel we need to go and find those people. I feel that they are coming to us, and it's sort of become quite natural. Like, once we put it out there with those 5 members, people just started contacting them.
We've also made it so there's no barrier to be part, other than the barriers of what, you know, making sure that they're doing the right thing. I think the thing that aligns with what we believe in. There's no cost to join the ReAction Collective, and the reason for that is that a lot of these organisations are quite often run by one person on their own as a passion project, like we're doing, and we want to encourage those people to flourish in what they're doing, and so we don't want there to be financial barriers or things that they might worry about. And the other thing about that is that if we're not charging them to be part of the collective, then there's no like return on investment calculation that they're making. So they actually come, and I think there's a few members on the call, they come like with like, oh, what can I bring, as well as what, you know, how can I benefit? So that's really cool.
Can you just, sorry, can I just ask if you zoom in like really tight on that first moment when you went from one tree to the collective? Like, how did the first five happen? Like, how did you decide to do that? Yeah.
So with the first 5, one of them had actually been involved with already setting up in Morzine called Montanvert. So when we did that very first Fix It day, we then took it on tour. We went to Morzine because we had some mates over there, and they set up an association, and we'd been running our community hub, and they have a much bigger town. And I knew someone contacted me and said, I've got a retail space in that town on the main high street. And I phoned them up and said, like, you've got to take this space, and sort of explained to them what we were doing. They took it, and their space has become so successful. It's become a business. They've had to shift it. So they were one of them. And then another one was, there's the Little Loop as well, which was a lady called Charlotte that actually used to work in the ski shop with me. So there's a lot of serendipity in all of this. And she set up a children's shared wardrobe platform. There was Eco Ski. So there was a few organisations that we knew of. And actually in that first moment, the most important thing was just to get, like throughout all of this, we don't know what we're doing. We're just going, like, it wasn't planned, it wasn't like decided. And I think the key there was just to get 5 on, so it looked like we had something. And then from that point, people came and went, right.
Yeah.
What you did.
And we just literally went out on social media, didn't we? Like, we kind of agreed to do it. We wrote up a bit of a prospectus with an idea of what it was, and then we just went on LinkedIn and Instagram and started with it. We got a logo, and then we just went with it, and just people were like, oh yeah, you know, that sounds good, I want to be in that. And then people referred people. It all came quite organically, didn't it?
Yeah.
And to your point of recording, we probably have different opinions on this. I like a story, and I'm terrible with numbers, and I'm terrible with paperwork. So I'm really, really bad at recording the impact from that aspect, in a sense. And I'm much more interested and much more focused on the stories and the impact it has within my community. So
actually, as you were explaining that, I suddenly realised that you had already answered that question actually by talking about the wins. And I think that is the biggest measure of all. You know, if people feel that they're winning, they're actually making some progress, they're doing something that means something to them. That's kind of the biggest impact you could ask for, isn't it?
Well, the impact, I don't know, like, yeah, it's difficult because you can kind of gauge impact in, like, you know, number of items like resold, like maybe that's displaced a sale of something new. Like when Rebecca rents a tent, maybe that's prevented someone from buying a tent, for example. And I quite like building, you know, actually looking at some of those numbers and building a story from that, you know, because, you know, maybe like 200 people didn't buy a tent this summer, but they all went to festivals and slept in tents. So I think that's pretty cool. But the more powerful stories actually come when you spend time in these organizations, because if you spend time, you'll hear about the builder from down the road who's brought in his old jackets to get repaired because they're his jackets, and he actually doesn't want to go out and buy new ones to get dirty on the building site. He just wants them to be functional and work, and because they're his, and then he doesn't have to go shopping because he probably doesn't want to go shopping anyway on his weekend. So, you know, like, we're having started out with this sort of climate agenda, we actually realized that we touch different people for lots of different reasons, and that's opened up our eyes to kind of the need that's out there. And also, you know, we ended up, it's so funny, we were in the shop and this guy came in and we ended up having this conversation actually about climate, even though he started the conversation by saying, I don't really care about climate, I just want my stuff fixed. And then he actually came around to the idea and said, yeah, it is quite important actually, isn't it? And so it's so nuts how, yeah, it is the stories. It's the people you touch, and it's the people that you make a difference to, and that you help think differently, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. On that note, sorry, Anna, I'm just going to say on that note as well, numbers, like there's we are definitely finding our way as we go, and this started out as a space that was really just mainly focused on the outdoors, but now there's some organisations in this collective that do, you know, they're kind of slightly on the fringes. So one is the Party Kit Network with Isabel, and Isabel has created an entire collective. So we've got collectives on collectives that is encouraging people to build a party kit in their community and rent it out so that people don't buy single-use kit. And she's just done an audit, and this year she's kept over 1 million single-use items out of landfill, or stopped them being purchased. So I think, like, there is, yeah, I like the stories, but Heather is right, like there's good stories to be drawn from these numbers.
Because collectively, like, if you add all our numbers together across 55 organizations, it's like, actually then you start to have some real, like, some tangible impact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
well, that's another one, Anne. Oh, sorry, no, go on.
There's a couple of other questions that have cropped up. So Artem's very interested in the way you're governed. You know, if you have a government, because you mentioned a manifesto, so you know it's fair enough. But if you've got some terms of reference or anything like that pick, I knew you were going to say no.
Does gut feel count?
Very, very loosely.
Yeah. Okay.
Only because, like,
well, we don't feel like it needs governing, really. Like, we're not, like, we don't own it. We're not, I don't know, like, we're just a bit like the Citizen Collective. We kind of see ourselves as stewards of this thing that's happening, not something that doesn't feel at the moment that it really needs governing.
Okay. So there's no constitution or any kind of formal.
No. What we'd like to do is do what Citizen Collective's doing in terms of putting our finances on the open collective, so that we can be really transparent about what's coming in and what's going out. Not a lot is the answer, but like, yeah. But as far as governance is concerned,
I think it's similar to the One Tree at a Time space. Though, in my role at One Tree at a Time space is not to not really to have a say. I get lost
let it happen. Yeah.
To let it happen, and it's the same with ReAction. Like, I don't think it hasn't needed to this point. Whether we get to a size where suddenly there are some issues come up.
Okay. So, John, just before I invite you in to ask your question, just a reminder that the bit I really want to get into is Citizen Friday. So, as long as you leave space for that, that's great.
I just have one more very quick one, which was the start. There's a lovely sense coming through of the difference between you two and the way you think and work, and I'd love to just like unpack that a little bit more, because I think there's some nice dynamics that actually are quite common to different organizations and movements that are trying to do this kind of work. So maybe you could just say a little bit about how you see each other's roles and what you bring to it.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, definitely. I come up with some really bad ideas and never thought them out. And some of them stick and some of them get scrapped, which is fine. No, I'm like, I definitely do like come up with the ideas, and I don't know, like I think what I've kind of come to realize over the last 2 years is we really are just feeling our way through this, and it's like heart and gut. It's not like planned, it's not decided. And so that involves like quite a lot of just thinking and running with stuff and taking chances. But Heather is definitely the person that makes that thing sound like logical or like even more comprehensible, because it's also really quite complicated to explain this easily, because you know we're suggesting that we need to change the human story, and that's not something you can just write a one-liner about. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think Gav's really the ideas man, and I love that. And sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? Where does this fit? And it takes a while to like work out. But actually, we just have really complementary styles, I think. Sometimes I have to sleep on things a bit to like get my head around it. But we've always ended up at, feels like we've always ended up at the right place. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't. It's not very tangible. Sorry.
That's okay. You know,
there's a lovely quote that I'll just share quickly, and it's a lovely quote I'll just share quickly. Is every great social impact and every great social initiative needs at least two different types of people: maniacs and minders. And I think there's some fun in that.
What was that, John?
I'm the minder for sure.
Maniacs and minders. It was the
Minders.
original quote is from Stephen Lloyd, who was the guy who supported Jamie Oliver to create 15, the original sort of social enterprise restaurant chain. I'll pop a link in the chat.
Yeah,
it's Citizen Friday, Anne.
Yeah, great. And you know, you kind of giving the impression that you're not really thinking about it. It's just kind of happening and all. But you're making things happen. You know, there's absolutely no doubt about that. You just have to look at what's going on, and it's fantastic, just great. So yeah, Citizen Friday. That's how I first came across you. That really grabbed my attention. I think it was a post on LinkedIn or something like that, even before we started the Citizen Collective. And I just love that idea. And I'm guessing there are quite a lot of people on this call who abhor the whole idea of Black Friday. And it just seemed like such a breath of fresh air to say, you know, we can do something different to this. So tell us how that came about, and what your reaction was, and you know, all of that kind of thing, and what you're planning for it.
So Citizen Friday started about this time last year, when we started to see adverts coming through from outdoor companies for Black Friday, which is at the end of November. And we just had this conversation, I think. We were like, bloody hell, can you believe, like, you know, these outdoor companies are organizations that should care about the outdoors, and they're promoting overconsumption, you know, and it just felt wrong to us. So we were just like, oh, what should we do? And then you came up with some really bad
idea. I came up with really bad ideas.
We were like, we need to do something. We need to do a campaign. And then Gav was like, yeah, Slack Friday. I can't remember some of the others. They were awful. And I was like, what are you on about? Hang on, okay. So what is this going to be at the core of it? What do we want to do? Because we've seen Green Friday campaigns, we've seen Blue Friday campaigns, and it feels like Black Friday, but dressed up in a different color, like it's not really doing anything different. So I was like, what about Citizen Fridays? What do we want people to do? We want them not to buy. We want them to do citizen stuff. We want them to do cool stuff. So I was like, what about, okay, like don't buy, share, repair, and get out in the fresh air. And then we just launched this campaign on that, and we just said, this is your alternative basically to Black Friday. And I think so we started posting about it, and it started to really get some resonance. Like we started hearing back from people say, this is such a good idea, we love this idea, da, da, da. And I think the reason that it resonated with people so much was because we were giving them an alternative. We weren't just saying, oh, you know, buy a more sustainable product, or, you know, protect the oceans on this day instead, or whatever. We're actually saying, go out and do something a bit more meaningful. And we wrote a few different blogs about it, about what that all meant, how people could get into repair, what sharing meant. It's not just about sharing stuff, it's about sharing time, it's about sharing knowledge, expertise, getting out in the fresh air, what that means to us. You know, we live and we spend a lot of time outdoors, and so we know the benefits that you can get from that, you know, and it's not just the dopamine hit that you get from buying stuff, it's the everything, it's the serotonin, it's the exercise, get your blood pumping and everything. And then you come up with really good ideas, and it all just flows from there. So that was the origins of Citizen Friday, and because it resonated with people, we kind of carried it on, didn't we?
It resonated with me, so I carried it on for sure, because I started to find that I've got 2 young boys, and they basically go to creche from Monday to Thursday, and they didn't on a Friday. So on Friday I hang out with them, and so for the last year I've been selfishly taking Citizen Friday every week, which generally means to be a citizen over a consumer. And I can say, like, that ritual of doing something weekly has transformed me personally. So it's just been a really enjoyable experience. That's why I say I've selfishly kept it going, because I really enjoy it.
I think
that's great, because as a few people are saying in the chat, you know, people are so fed up of being told what not to do, and John's just sort of joined in with that. So giving people an alternative, a positive thing to do, is just beautiful. It's so good, and it's so easy. Because, as you say, everybody they don't even have to do it on a Friday. You can choose whatever day you like, but the idea is still the same. Yeah, terrific. So what have you got planned for combating Black Friday this year?
Oh, so we've got a new campaign coming out. It's all along the same lines. We've got some fun campaign visuals coming out to highlight some of the things, and also to challenge some of the brands that are sort of knee deep in Black Friday. So that's quite fun. But the other thing that we're doing, which actually came from a challenge from John, which was his like, right, so what's next, guys? We were like, oh really? We need to do more. And actually we ended up getting very embroiled in the story of Audrey Tang and the work that she'd done with the Taiwanese government using a tool called Polis. That we were like, I wonder, we kind of had this inkling of an idea. I wonder if we could co-create a vision for the future of the outdoor industry. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be inviting people as part of the share part of Citizen Friday to share their views with us via Polis. And what that looks like, I don't know, can we share the screen? Should we share our screen?
if you could just say a few words about what Polis is, because there'll be people.
Oh yeah, so Polis is basically it's a kind of a voting platform. There are lots of statements on there, so we've actually embedded it into our website. So I don't know if you can see this. Can you scroll down a bit? So this is the thing that we're worried about, that the outdoor industry is prioritizing profit over connecting people with the outdoors. And then we've written a few statements, and then we've actually started to put this out to people. And what people can do is either agree with the statement that's there, disagree with it, or pass. And then they can go through, you can see there's 48 statements remaining there. They're very quick to go through. As soon as you answer one, another one pops up. So it's just like click, 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 click. And then if you don't find that your views are represented, then you can share your perspective, submit your short phrase, and that gets moderated, but generally, assuming that there's not a duplicate, then we'll moderate that into the statements that are available for people to vote on, and then people can vote on that. And what we get is an idea of where consensus is formed. So I won't go through all of this now because it's, in fact, I'll stop sharing. But what we'd like to do on Citizen Friday itself, which is on the 28th of November, we are going to be launching a new page on our website that's going to show where that consensus lies, and hopefully the idea is to share that back to the outdoor industry and say, look, what if you adopted some of these ideas? And basically the idea is to get as many people involved in that process as possible so that we get a diverse range of views about lots of things to do with the outdoor industry. So it could be access rights, it could be about fossil fuel sponsorship in sports, it could be about brands and repair and reuse and circular economy. It could be about citizen spaces, sharing platforms, all sorts of things. So we just really want as many people to get involved as possible. So that's our call to action. If you do anything after this call, please, please, please participate.
That's superb. Yes, I'm sure, judging by the reactions there, you're going to get an awful lot of people participating. So, John, any other? Yes, obviously.
I've always got stuff, Anne. You know that. Always. I mean, I'd love to actually just see if anyone wants to come in and ask a question of any of this. I think there's loads of suggestions, and we are definitely gonna. I think Katie Moore is in the group and was saying she might be willing to do a bit of editing, and of some of the film of this, and we might chop out the bit where Heather and Gav have just described the Outdoors 2.0 and Citizen Friday, and we'll see if we can circulate that and get more people involved. There is, we'll probably create a Citizen Friday Discord channel. Rowan has suggested that, and we'll sort of see if we can make 28th of November a real sort of focus day for Citizen Collective and what we're all doing, whether that's posting or like just getting involved, sharing pictures, all that kind of stuff. So we'll do that. And if anyone's got any ideas, then stick them on the channel. Maybe while I'm talking, I will just say what we're doing next, and then we'll see if there's any questions. So there will be. There will be a discussion forum on this call, about this call that's set up, that Tamsin has already set up. So if you go away from this call and you're thinking about stuff and you want to ask a question or suggest something, then please post it in there. Gavin and Heather have very kindly said that they will keep looking at that stuff. But also, after the last Citizen Spotlight call, we had the idea of testing out kind of a bit of a live, like, I don't know if anyone's done a Reddit Ask Me Anything, but we're gonna basically, the way they work is that it's an online session where you can post questions, and Heather and Gav will be online live, kind of answering as many as they can. So we're going to do that Wednesday night at 7 p.m. UK time, 7 to 8 p.m. UK time, I think, and we'll send rounds. I'll send that round on an email. So plenty of time to ask more questions, just so you know, and there is lots of intent and energy to try and make Citizen Friday a real focus moment this year, in the spirit that both Citizen Collective and ReAction Collective and all of this work is, as Gav beautifully says, we don't know what we're doing and we're figuring it out as we go. So that's very much the spirit. But testing and using all of these examples and learning from Taiwan and so forth. So that's a little spiel from me.
So just before we end on that, John, I think it's worth saying that it's a very small group of us who are putting these calls together and deciding what we think people want and what we think the purpose of all this is. And just looking at some of the comments and the questions and the discussions that are going on in the chat, completely separate to this, people helping each other, people sharing links, people doing all sorts of things. We're really happy to hear from you as to what you think the purpose of all of this could be for you. So, you know, again, join in the chat, put your ideas in there, because at the end of the year, we'll have a look at everything and decide where we take it from here. So the more we hear from you, the better.
Nice. Does anyone? But for now, we've got Gavin and Heather for another 7 minutes. Does anyone have anything that they want to ask or dig into a bit deeper? And while I leave you to think about that, I just want to zoom in on another moment, which is the first Citizen Friday, and when you decided to do that, and like, because I think one of the things you guys maybe underestimate is the bravery of just putting something out there. And I just want to like you to zoom in on like how you felt and like what it feels like to actually kind of just go with something, or whether it feels different to you when you sort of first put one of these things into the world, whether it's Outdoors 2.0 or Citizen Friday or ReAction Collective. What does it feel like to you? Why, and what's that moment like?
I'll go with anything.
I think it feels really normal.
Yeah.
It feels like we should do it. Like, look at heck, come on. Like, we can't just sit around doing nothing. If you care about it, just do it. Like, I don't know, I am a bit of a eternal optimist, and I sort of think like, what's the worst that could happen?
Nice.
I mean,
I've been really not surprised, but kind of whoa, when people in my network who don't know anything about all this have latched onto that one thing and started sharing it. So yeah, I think it really is something that's grabbed people's imagination, and it's very, very accessible for people to get involved in.
It's a brilliant campaign, much better than what I could come up with.
No, there's another. Go on, Gav.
I'm going to say what really happened is Rebecca, who is on this call as well, left a message in Discord from Tenshare saying, should we do an anti-Black Friday campaign? And I sent a really bad message back going, can't be bothered. And then in the middle of the night, I woke up to feed Kai, and I was awake for 2 hours. And then I was like, right, maybe we should do some message Heather. And then she sorted it out. So yeah, it's all guts. And I think like, yeah, we're like, what is the worst that can happen? If it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick.
I really like that spirit. It's something Tamsin said to me a lot when we were doing social media stuff around the book as well. Like, if something doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. But the worst you can do is actually not put things out there. So I think there's a bit of an encouragement in that. Jerry's got a question in the chat. Are any French people involved, and how have they reacted?
Yeah. I mean, the employees in the shop, they've got French employees. We've got 3 other French organisations. It's interesting here because our community space in the village is very unusual. You don't have much of that in France. These sort of spaces are quite new. You don't really have charity shops. You tend to pay a lot more tax in France. So I think the French believe the state should sort out everything really. So it's quite interesting when we get people coming into the shop because we present everything really, really well in the community hub, and it's all clean and it looks really cool. And it's quite bemusing to a lot of the people that come in. But it's well received. Like, yeah, we've got lovely workshops where it's bilingual, Italian, French, English, and there's loads of us just mucking in. But I think that's the power of like creating a space and then putting a big table as the main feature of the whole space, because it encourages people to sit around it and talk and converse. It breaks down that transaction.
That's a really lovely thought, and reminiscent of Colville, of the first Citizen Spotlight in Colville. Like, create the space and own the space, and anything can happen. And then John has just put in the chat. Maybe this is a lovely one to end on. Like, for someone trying to establish a local group, organisation, enterprise with a citizen focus, top tips for getting started and making effective use of time and connections.
Oh, the first thing has just got to be just start. I mean, we didn't have any organisation before that Fix-It day. Like, we just had a bit of pavement outside a shop. So all you have to do is put the call out, and you know, if it's something that people believe in, they'll come and join you. And that's, you know, all the stories in your book pretty much start like that, don't they, John? Like, somebody has an idea and others join them, and off it goes. So,
and we still still take that repair day on tour. Like, I still do it 10 times a year because I love it. And you go and do that in a bar or a restaurant or anywhere like that, they'll have insurance, everything covered like that. So it's a matter of just like getting out there and doing it really. You'll find, and I think you'll find, like when we started you find there's loads of seamstresses in the community. You find there's people great at marketing that want to jump on board. You find Heather's husband is a website designer, and he's going to help you out as well. So like, if you start, people come.
Yeah, and in terms of tools, like we just use all the free ones, like WhatsApp groups, Discord. Yeah, like, don't know.
I think that's a lovely place to kind of to sort of round for today. But the idea of just like, and I think it speaks to this, to the reason why we started Citizen Collective and the very parallel journey. It's like there's such a hunger in the world at the moment that is just under the surface. And when you put something in, when you create a space that people can come into and acknowledge that the sort of the tension they're feeling and the opportunity that they're hunting for, then all the skills come in, and that's what we're hoping to happen with Citizen Collective. So if you're not in yet, come and get in. I'll just say a word about what's coming up over the next couple of weeks. So in Manchester next week, if anyone's near Manchester or in Manchester, there's going to be a hangout, just a meet up in a pub in Manchester on Tuesday evening on the 15th. I'm going to be in Manchester for the week, so there's a little gang who are sort of hauling me out and getting us together. And then there's a few more calls coming up. So week of the 28th on the an event. So week of the 28th on the 29th. If you're anyone in London, the Grantham Institute annual lecturer is Caroline Lucas, talking about hope and climate and community. And I'm a discussant at that lecture, so I'll be sending around more details. But that's at Imperial College on the 29th. On the 30th, we have the next Citizen Workshop, which is going to be a call that we'll say a bit more about, but is a space for people to come with whatever you're working on and meet one another and help one another with what you're working on. And then on the 31st, again in London, but also online, I'll be hosting a conversation at the Conduit Club in Covent Garden with a couple of amazing people, Martin Sibley and Simon Duffy, who both approach the kind of questions about the future of democracy and what it is to have agency in the world through the lens of disability, and it's a really profound thing, and I'm super looking forward to that. So just a flavour of what's coming up. This will come around on email as well if you're on my mailing list, which you can get on just johnalexander.net if you're not on it yet. It will also be all of this will be posted and more on the Discord channel, which is also where this Ask Us Anything session will happen on the coming Wednesday night on the 16th. So thank you for coming, and more soon.
And thanks Heather and Gavin.
Yes, thank them.
Thank you for listening.
Well done, Anne. Thank you.
That's all right. That was good fun.
I'll close the call now.
Okay,
Cheers, folks.
take care. Bye.
Cool. Can't seem to close the call.
I can close the call. I just want to make sure I don't lose the chat.
And also, I'm going to stop recording. Yeah, the chat comes through. I get that saved. So.
Okay, I'll